Hey, good morning. How are you all today? Can U.S. Special Forces take out the cartels? Let me get you squared away here for a second. There we go. That's what I want to talk about today. I'll tell you the reason that I want to talk about it is because Trump is talking about having the U.S. military uh, participate in the taking down of the drug trade out of Mexico and going after the cartels. And of course, it involves more than just drugs. It's human trafficking, it's money laundering, it's all sorts of things. Uh, and is it? Do I think it would work? I'll kind of lead up to my opinion on that. First of all, I want to say that I have the utmost respect and for our special forces, and by that I mean Army Special Forces. That's when people talk about Special Forces now, I think a lot of people talk about the SEALs and recon. And what's the Marines new recon? They're doing away with it, aren't they? It's not just the Raiders. Anyway, I forget. But the Army Special Forces, that many people call Green Berets, uh, what great guys! I've had so many friends in Special Forces and I was not in the military, but for some reason or another, I know a lot. Um, from Vietnam to present day. They are exceptional people. Uh, I haven't known that many SEALs. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I live in Kansas. I had a couple who took classes from me in combatives some years ago. They seem like good guys. Not quite the how should I say maturity of the Army guys, the Special Forces. Trained a couple of Marine recon guys. They were good guys too. But really, what I'm talking about now is well, I guess maybe Trump is thinking about all of the special operations forces. Anyway, about a year ago, maybe more, it might have been a couple years ago now. I made a video. I forget whether it was just on YouTube or whether it was just on Patreon or it was on YouTube as well, where I talked about the fact that the cartels, the Mexican cartels, are very capable organizations, very full of very capable people. Now they're full of other people too, as any organization is. You've got your top notch folks, and then you've got all the fillers, right? But the cartels are no joke. They are nothing to be taken lightly. I was first and some of you know that when I first went undercover narcotics back in the 70s, it was shortly after Carter let in all the Cubans, and shortly behind them came the Colombians. These were like any other people we had ever dealt with. They were not Cosa Nostra. They were not. I would say that it took the narcotics trade to a much more animalistic level than it had ever been before. It was a whole different deal. So I've been aware and kind of kept up on those things ever since the 70s. And I don't immerse myself in the study of cartels, but I know a bit about them. So I said a couple of years ago, I made one to where I explained that they were very capable groups and nobody should underestimate them. I think it ticked off a couple of my viewers, and I think I even lost a couple who took me to task and said, "How can you even possibly think that a bunch of ragtag cartel people could stand up to us?" Excuse me while I take a sip. Well, they're not all that ragtag. What made me bring this about was I guess it's been a couple of weeks. I happened to see a short. It's just one of the things that pops up, and you go, "What's this?" I think it probably mentioned cartel, and so I watched it. It was John McPhee, who's a former Delta guy. I think it was on Rogan's show, and he said something in one of these shorts that I hadn't heard anybody else say, and he was right on target. He says, "Hey, man, these guys, these cartels, they have all the technology, they have the equipment, they have the drones, they have this, they have that." Uh, and I forget exactly what he said, but I thought, oh, here's a guy who understands. Okay. And then was it just last night, I think, I saw one pop up. I had mentioned, and the reason that I'm sure it popped up, because I had recommended this channel. It's Green Beret Chronicles. and he was covering a lot of the stuff that Anti-Hero podcast does about the lies that are coming out about Marcus Luttrell and Rob O'Neill and to a lesser extent Jocko Willink and but specifically Tim Kennedy. And so since I had watched that, another one popped up from this Green Beret Chronicles, and I don't know the guy's name. He seems like a good guy, and he was talking about the cartels, and I realized, well, I could tell that this was a little bit new to him. Nothing against him, right? We all have our areas of expertise, and I've seen a couple of. Let me put it this way: I've seen a couple of military people talking about the cartels, and I see that their understanding of it is very limited. I see it by the way they mispronounce things. So it's things that they've read, not that they've done or lived with. You see where I'm going with that? And it reminded me of when I went into the federal task force, organized crime task force. When I went in there, a lot of the guys, they had a lot of information. They had the full backing of the United States government. They had a lot of technology, a lot of money, a lot of manpower, and all this. but I had known these guys. I mean, the Cosa Nostra. I had known them all my life. I knew how it worked. I knew personally, and I could tell that the feds didn't really understand. They did not understand. They had, you go into. You've seen it in TV and movies where they have, the hierarchy of the family and, arrows going from one picture of one guy to another guy. And I looked at it and I said, well, they've got a lot of that wrong. But see, they got it from their intelligence. And they didn't know. So as I'm looking at this, and I see that a lot of people out there don't really have a first-hand knowledge of this, but they're getting into it. They're getting new, and then, if they dedicate themselves to it, they'll learn. But they don't know now, and so their ideas about how functionally capable our military would be against cartels is very limited. We all have the Dunning-Kruger. We no, it's a little bit opposite of that. But when you get into a certain area, you tend to, if you're not careful, estimate your own abilities in relation to somebody else if you put them down. And I think that's the problem that a lot of people are having right now. They don't understand the cartels, how complex they are, how fully equipped they are, how well trained some of them are. Not all. There's a bunch of ragtags. But here's the thing about the cartels. And why I don't think our military would do very well going after them. They are so intertwined into the fabric of Mexico. There's no rooting them out. And I heard one guy said that there's two main cartels. There are dozens of cartels in Mexico. Now there might be a couple of main ones, yes, but you know what? They change all the time. And did you know that the Los Zetas, which were a big one at one time, and then they fractured, and as they got into dispute with another one, they were originally Mexican special forces. So it's not like they don't have training. It's not like these people are stupid and untrained. Now, I'm not in any way going to compare the abilities and effectiveness of Mexican special forces to American special forces. That's not what I mean. But these people, they are tough. And I tell you, there's a certain kind of tough that comes from growing up in the kind of poverty that you find in the recruiting grounds of Mexico. So there are dozens of these cartels. And the cartels, some are more advanced than others, but they are in they have a presence in almost every American city. And I know that shocks a lot of people. Almost every American city. Doesn't mean that there's a group that you're going to go down and see a group of sicarios, at the local beer joint. But they have a presence. If there's fentanyl coming into your town, there is a cartel presence there. the cartels are also international. They operate in every state in Mexico and every country in South America, pretty much in every state in the United States and in most major cities, even some minor cities. They operate in Europe. It is truly an international, and they are so intertwined into the, like I said, the fabric of the society of Mexico. You can't pull their thread out without pulling loose other threads and aggravating other threads. The idea that our military or our special forces is going to be able to take them out, while it sounds good, let me put it this way, something that I also know about. The SAS was never able to root out the IRA. Yeah? And the SAS are no phonies, right? They are good. The SAS combined with the PSNI and the RUC over there, yeah, they went into Northern Ireland, which I said that, and those of us on my side don't say Northern Ireland, but most people know of it as Northern Ireland. They went in and they tried to go after those people. The reason that they were never successful, that the SAS pretty much were held at a standstill by the IRA, which was a very small group. The IRA was so small compared to the military presence, the British military presence and police presence in the north of Ireland. It's not even comparable to what the cartels are in Mexico. And yet, I'll tell you a story about, maybe I'll tell you, well, I don't know if I will or not. Let me get back to that. I may or I may not. They went over, they tried to do a job. Their job was to, force peace and quiet on the north of Ireland. Well, the problems there are multi-generational, 800 years old. They were never going to force peace. They were never able to do away with the IRA or the INLA or any of the loyalist groups, because they were such a part of the society. And when the RUC or the PSNI or the SAS, in their presence over there, they were held up in forts. I mean, they were essentially prisoners within their forts, and they could only come out in armored convoys, usually with air cover. So who was holding who down over there, right? And they're such a part of the community that they're just regular people. See what I mean? They're just regular people. I'll tell you a story of the time I was in Derry and talking to some guys. I'll say his name on here. His name is Eamon Moore, and I use his name for a character in one of my books as a Texas Ranger. A really nice guy, really great guy, and he was one of the ones given life sentences for the bombing at the Drop in a Well bar in Ballykelly, I think it was. Just a normal guy. And I'll tell a story over on the Patreon channel about when Kelly talked to him on the phone. It's a funny story, but I'm not going to tell it here. Well, as much as the IRA and they fought the SAS to a standstill. Don't believe what you hear in the news. I'll leave it there. I'll just leave it there. The cartels are even more so. And they are everywhere. They raise their kids up. I mean, not their kids. They raise their killers up from the time that they're 6 and 7 and 8 years old. They have people in their organizations that are soulless. I mean, almost without a soul. They got these little killers that go out there and at 10 years old, they will kill you. They will cut your head off. They will put it by the side of the road and hang your body from a bridge. That's the kind of thing that's going on in Mexico. Now, pretty much every law enforcement agency in Mexico is corrupt to the core. The only ones that, from what I hear, are not are the Mexican Marines. And I don't know that to still be true. At one time, I believe they were pretty straight. But, like with anything, you're going to get good guys in the organization, and then you're going to get the corrupt ones. And you can't trust much of anything when you're dealing with the Mexican government or Mexican law enforcement. I'll tell you another thing right now is that, and I was told this by a friend of mine who's going to head up the security for the new Chuck Norris movie that's being shot in Mexico. Mike Morton knows him. For those of you, Mike's with us over on Patreon. That the cartels have kind of a deal now with the new Marxist communist president of Mexico to kind of hold down the violence because it's hurting. It's not hurting the avocado business, but it's hurting the tourism. They're still doing fine with human trafficking. They're doing fine with drugs. They're doing fine with guacamole. But it's hurting the international reputation of Mexico, and it's hurting the tourist trade down there. And it's in their interest to cool things out so that kind of improves. Okay. There's a lot of different reasons. Now, and a lot of the reasons that they want that to cool down is to further assist their drug trade and everything else. But that's the way you deal with these organizations. Our military will never be able to take out the cartels. I know that upsets some people, but it's just the truth. And the way you go after these people is go after them through their countries and go after them economically. To send a bunch of our guys down there to try to go after, Juan and Maria, yeah, they'll get them. I mean, our guys are great, but little bitty victories here and there do not win that kind of war. I mean, put together the VC with the Taliban, with Al Qaeda, with all of this, and wrap them up in a big bow, and you don't have near what you've got with the cartels. So what's going to happen with this? All I'm saying here is I see this starting to bubble up to present itself on YouTube channels and even amongst military people. And, as I said, McPhee, he has a lock on it. And let me go a little bit farther with the cartels here. It doesn't matter. They're always fighting each other, and they're fighting for turf and money and, all of this. But they have people everywhere. They have people in every local and state government. They have people all through the Mexican federal government. They have people in all of the maquiladoras. They have people in every, or have influence in every major industry. And if they don't have it and they want it, they'll get it. And so there's no rooting them out. There's no isolating them from the rest of the Mexican society. And so you don't go in there with some teams and root them out and think that's going to work. It ain't going to work. Not going to work. The way you deal with the only way you deal successfully with these kind of people is politically and economically. And if you get it to the point to where, and how to do that is you got to shut it down. First, you have to increase law enforcement here in the United States. And I mean law enforcement. I don't mean military intervention. It doesn't have to be military intervention. Law enforcement needs to be allowed to do what they are supposed to do and know how to do and want to do if they're allowed to do it. At least we used to know what to do. I hope the new guys do. I'm sure some do. So you lock it down, you lock the border, you enforce the law here in the States, and then you put such a economic clamp on that country down there, that everybody has to come to Jesus. Really. You get it to the point that there's no people coming north of the border, there's no drugs coming north of the border, there's no guacamole coming north of the border. I know it'll kill me because I love guac, but you get that. You shut down their international banking, and you will pay a price, though. I mean, there will be a price, just like the IRA. And most people don't know this. While innocent people were killed, all the IRA, they all only targeted military and police security services and financial institutions. They yes, innocent people got killed. The IRA usually apologized for that. It was never their purpose. Now, the INLA was a little bit different. Not a lot, but a little bit. But if you clamp down on Mexico, it's not like the cartels aren't going to respond. They are. There are going to be attacks against military, against security services, ours, and financial institutions. And then you just have to be ready to deal with it. So anyway, it is a much more complicated scenario, which almost rhymes with Sicario, right? You want to see a good movie? Sicario is a good movie. Pretty good movie. Amongst all the drivel out there. But it's far more complicated than most people have any idea. And so that's why I wanted to bring it up. So I know I'm going to hear a bunch of other YouTube channels talking about, we need to send our military down there and all. Well, use our military to seal the border. And then those problems won't be coming up here. But to go down there and do it, no. You are asking for another Vietnam and Afghanistan combined and squared. So, unless we want to make them I don't want to make them. I mean, after we make Canada the 51st state, I'd love for Mexico to be the 52nd state. I love Mexicans. I love the Mexican people. I do. I love Mexican food. It's a beautiful country. They have beautiful horses. They have beautiful women. They have manly men. They're hard workers, but they have this. And it needs to be kept from affecting us. Okay? All right. That's all I wanted to say, because I'm sure you're going to start hearing some more about this. So, if you want to learn more about it, and I suggest you do, learn more about it so that you really understand when you're hearing, whether you're hearing the truth or a bunch of BS. And I will, as soon as I switch off here, I'll tell that story about when Kelly talked on the phone to the dropping well bomber. Okay. You all have a good day. I will talk to you later. Oh, I forgot to say, we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. And we do. And preparing well means getting the right information. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.